Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randirhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
And this is the crazy scene after the sentencing of Bill
walking out of the
Cosby
courtroom,
getting
and here it is, Bill Cosby walking out of the courtroom in handcuffs. It seems that the judge did want to put him in front of cameras so that cameras could see what happens to a man when he's been found guilty of what he did to Andrea Constant and of all the horrible things he did to her. Drugging and sexually assaulting her. Sorry, sometimes it's hard to get your mind around some of those excruciatingly horrible allegations. Bill Cosby, remanded to county jail, will serve 3 to 10 years in prison.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Bill Cosby. He had a lot of people vouching for him, too, didn't he? He had a lot of people vouching for him. A lot of, goodwill in the American population. I mean, we were just talking about it. My boys here, they're very traumatized by seeing Bill Cosby in handcuffs. It really did hit them hard because, they're younger than me, and they grew up with the Cosby Show. And they love him, and they know that he's done some great things in his life. And, they also know that he's been very rapey. And now he's going to jail. He's going to jail. He's going to freaking prison for 3 to 10 years. I'll tell you, I will never be able to watch Leonard Six again. I will never be able to look at reruns of The Cosby Show or Fat Albert. Or, I'll never be able to look at Jell-O pudding the same. Or Lisa Bonet. Or even Lenny Kravitz, who married Lisa Bonet. All right, maybe Lisa Bonet and Lenny Kravitz you could look at, the same. Or Quaaludes. The same. Apparently, this is like the date rape drug of yesteryear. You know what I mean? It's just so unbelievable. So this is unfortunate timing for Brett Kavanaugh. It's very unfortunate timing because this woman, Andrea Constant, who actually met Bill Cosby, listen to this long road, okay? This is how long it took for these women. And it was Andrea Constant who originally brought this case. But this is how long it took to get justice. And obviously, there were 2 trials. There was the trial with a hung jury. She had to go through a second trial. This jury found him guilty, and this judge gave him 3 to 10 years in a prison. And, of course, his lawyers were saying, look, he's 81 years old. They practically were arguing that he's impotent. Kavanaugh's arguing that he's a freaking virgin. If Mark Judge and his crowd at Deke, at the fraternity at Yale, the Deke fraternity at Yale, if they knew that Brett Kavanaugh was a virgin at Yale, they would have gang raped him. But I'm just saying, and so, this is just so unbelievable what's gone on here. This woman, Andrea Constant, who was like so completely brave and so unshakable, and so I don't know that she's unshakable. She's probably been shaken up plenty through this, but she met him in 2000, right? And then in 2004 she told her story, and her story is a horrible story. I mean, he had her at the house and he put something in her drink, and he told her take I can't remember if he put it in her drink or he told her to take this. It would relax her. She was a coach, a women's basketball coach at Temple University, and she thought she was going to his house for, some sort of a business meeting, and then all this horrible, horrible crap happened. He drugged her, and he raped her. And so she's been trying to get justice for this since 2004. Everybody check the calendar right now. It's 2018. It took her 14 years. 14 years to get justice. And there were other women, too. I mean, there were so many women along the way. Lily Bernard, she's an actress. She said Bill Cosby drugged and raped her. She said the verdict today was a hallelujah moment, even though she had very mixed emotions over how long it took to get justice. She said this is a momentous decision in the Me Too era. It's incredibly important. I do have mixed emotions. On the one hand, I feel absolutely elated that justice was served. On the other hand, I also feel disappointed because clearly the 3-year minimum sentence does not adequately reflect the havoc this man, this rapist, has inflicted on so many women's lives, including my own. It does indicate there is now a shift in the legal system that is now going to reflect modern culture, and that now women's voices are being believed and women's lives are being valued. Well, not if you put Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. I mean, this is a man who told Jane, what was her name? Jane Doe. This the Garza case. This was an immigrant woman who was, fleeing and trying to make a claim for asylum. And when she was fleeing Central America, she apparently was also raped and came into our custody and found out she was pregnant. And of course, not wanting to have a rapist's baby, she asked for an abortion. And, when you're here in the United States, the Constitution applies to you. And Kavanaugh was the guy who said no to her. He said, absolutely not. She's in Texas. We have parental consent. And, of course, the state was her guardian, right? And the state had given permission. Oh, no. And delayed it and delayed it and delayed it. Finally, Kavanaugh was overturned. This lack of respect he had for this poor girl who had been through so much trauma, so much, and could not face a pregnancy, could not do it. He delayed it to the point where she needed a more complex procedure, let's say, and ended up being hospitalized for a more complex procedure because he let it go into the second trimester. You're telling me, I love, I have so much respect for girls. I have so much respect. And I got to tell you, Cosby's publicist is just as bad as, the Whelan publicist and all these people we traced back to Orrin Hatch yesterday. The guy who said, maybe something happened to her, but she's mixed up. It was some other guy, Ed Whelan, who took down that tweet. Then the other guy, what was his name? Garrett Ventry, also worked for CRC, this PR firm, who, by the way, this PR firm were the Swift Boat veterans. Okay, this is the Jerome Corsi group that Swift boated John Kerry and said John Kerry's service was not good. They didn't like his service. Remember that? It's the same PR group. Same PR group that and of course Jerome Corsi is best friends with Roger Stone. I mean, they're the kings of dirty tricks, and now it looks like Roger Stone was emailing Jerome Corsi and another guy named Malik and telling these two somebody's got to talk to WikiLeaks. Somebody's got to talk to WikiLeaks so that we can time the WikiLeaks dumps back in 2016. So now the court knows, or at least Mueller knows, that Roger Stone was emailing Jerome Corsi, whose PR firm this is, that Whelan worked for, that this other guy, Ventry, who had to resign. He had to resign yesterday because he is being accused of sexual harassment and apparently lied about it. And he was advising Senator Chuck Grassley at the Judiciary Committee on how to handle the Kavanaugh thing. So they're all in on it. And every time you hear, the woman's name leaked, that's because the Senate Judiciary Committee knew the name, and now we know, they knew the name of Deborah Ramirez, the second woman, and they also knew Ford's name, Dr. Blasey Ford's name. And they're the ones that are, leaking these things to this PR firm so that they can deal with it before you even know what these women have to say. This is sick. But I got to show you what publicists do. This is Andrew Wyatt, okay? He is Bill Cosby's publicist, okay? You might wonder, why am I playing Bill Cosby? Because this is what they do when the news is not in the favor of your client, okay? When the news is really heinous.
I believe and think it is important to point out that that this has been the most racist and sexist trial in the history of the United States. Dr. Cosby has been one of the greatest civil rights leaders in the United States for over the last 50 years. He has also been one of the greatest educators of men and boys over the last 50 years. This was not pointed out to the jury or allowed in court because the racist and sexist mass media was attacking and denouncing Dr. Cosby whenever his lawyers even hinted there was racist and sexism present. All three of the psychologists who testified against Dr. Cosby were white women who make money off of accusing black men of being sexual predators. It is no accident that the prosecutor still worked so close with anti-black and anti-male activist groups who tried to extort $100 million from Dr. Cosby in 2014 and continues to produce racist and sexist publicity against him through the 35 clients. What is going on in Washington today with Judge Kavanaugh is part of that sex war that Judge O'Neill, along with his wife, are a part of.
Kavanaugh, he invoked Kavanaugh. She has been in court for 14 years. A good number of the women who have said that Bill Cosby raped them are African-American women. Bill Cosby, when he talks about mentoring young boys and men, he did the whole pull up your pants thing. Some advice that perhaps Bill Cosby should have listened to. Coming out of his own mouth, he should have paid attention and pulled up his pants. Just saying. So, I mean, this is what PR people do. They, you know, when your client has been through 2 trials and your client has been adjudicated guilty and your client has heard, the judge has heard from your client, the judge has heard from the accusers, the judge has heard from the jury, the judge has heard from the prosecutor, and the judge has heard from the defense attorneys. And the defense attorneys today said, after 14 years of them trying to get justice for themselves, these women, right? The defense attorney said, look, Your Honor, he's 81 years old. There's no evidence that he basically can get it up, is what they put forward. They said he hasn't raped anybody since 2004. And that if he was this serial rapist, he probably would have kept on going. Right, but in 2004, that's when Andrea Constand filed her charges. So he kind of probably knew, better not do it now. Do you know what I'm saying? It's so ridiculous. And this is what they do. This is the sex war that's going on, and Kavanaugh's been, Give me a freaking break. It's sad, okay? It's sad. Everybody's traumatized to see Bill Cosby in handcuffs. It doesn't go along with what Dr. Cliff Huxtable represented to a whole bunch of young people who watch television in the middle 80s, okay? It's not fun like Fat Albert. It isn't funny like Leonard Six. It's not, the Cosby Show. It's not inspiring. It's a hideous, heinous, ugly story of drugging women and raping them. Raping them. He's very, very rapey. And now he must go to prison. So they were arguing that he should just be under house arrest because he's old, he's blind, and he's impotent. The judge said, we have geriatric facilities. Bye-bye.
All things Randy at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
So as you may or may not know, Ashley and Brett appeared on the very neutral Fox News, a vowel movement away from what it does to actual news. They were on there last night. Not ABC, not CBS, not PBS, not NBC News. Oh no, the very impartial and home of Chester the molesters, all found homes there, all of them. Roger Ailes, millions of dollars. Bill O'Reilly, millions of dollars of judgments against them for sexually harassing, right? This is where he chose this place to go and do something unprecedented. A Supreme Court justice nominee has never gone on the TV to proclaim his innocence over and over again. And oh my God, was he rehearsed?
I am looking for a fair process, and all I'm asking for is fairness, and that I be heard. All I'm asking for is a fair process where I can be heard. Again, just asking for a fair process where I can be heard and I can defend my integrity. Again, I'm just asking for a fair process where I can be heard. Fair process, let me be heard. I want a fair process where I can defend my integrity. America's about fairness. I want to be heard. A fair process. America's about fairness. I want a fair process where I can defend my integrity. In America, we have fairness. Fair process, and I think the process, I want to have an opportunity to defend my integrity and clear my name and have a fair process. A fair process at a minimum, at a bare minimum. I just want a fair process where I can be heard.
You don't have any thoughts on where this is coming from?
I just want a fair process where I can be heard, defend my integrity. I just want an opportunity, a fair process where I can defend my integrity. And we're looking for a fair process where I can be heard.
Wow. A fair process where I can be heard with no witnesses and no investigation. A fair process where I can be heard. This from a guy who put his hand over a victim's mouth. I'll tell you what. You know what would be fair? You know what would be a fair process is if we had him in to the Judiciary Committee on the Senate Judiciary Committee on Thursday, and we blasted rock music, and he had to testify with someone's hand over his mouth. That would be a fair process. Fair process. All I'm asking for is a fair process where I could be heard. He must have said that. I mean, I'm watching this thing last night. I'm like, how many times is he going to say it? I mean, this is like they have drilled it. They have drilled this talking point into this man's head to the point where if he was as drunk as he was on the night of this assault, he could still manage to remember to say, just looking for a fair process, just want to be heard. Holy crap. And, I thought the fact that he had picked Fox News was telling enough. I mean, this is a guy who said, a judge has to be an umpire. We only call balls and strikes. I'm fair to everybody. I blah, blah, blah. I this and that. He's been a political operative his entire freaking life. This is why at the beginning of the unfair process of rushing him through and confirming him, the National Archives said it would take until September to gather all his documents, to gather all his papers, and present them to the Judiciary Committee. That is as fast as we can go. And the Judiciary Committee said, oh, F it then. We'll just go with Bill Burke. Bill Burke will vet document. We'll present only the documents we want to present. Screw the National Archives, which has always vetted Supreme Court justices' documents, except in this case, because they didn't want to wait. They needed to ram him through. They needed to, a fair process with no witnesses and no investigation and no emails of stolen emails and, nothing at all. A fair process, Oh, my God. So that was the beginning of the unfair process of ramming him through. And then came the accusations. Then came the accusations and the stories. And those stories were told on the condition of anonymity. Those letters were written saying they didn't want to press forward with any of this. They just thought that Senator Feinstein and Anna Eshoo should know the character of this man. And the Senate Judiciary Committee leaked her freaking name. And now we know that it's the same PR firm that Ed Whelan worked for, that Garrett Ventry, who had to resign because he's been accused of sexual assault, that he had to, that he worked for, and that they all somehow are connected to Orrin Hatch. And these are the Swift boats, the Swift boat veterans, right? The ones that got together to trash the reputation of one John Kerry. I mean, I cannot believe. And then he goes on Fox News like we're not supposed to deduce anything about partisanship when he was free to choose who he would sit down and talk to. Obviously, he was free to do it. He was free not to do it. Obviously, this was organized by Bill Shine, the former co-president of Fox News, who is now inside the West Wing working as the communications guy for Donald Trump. He told Kavanaugh, go on Fox News. They'll handle you with kid gloves. I'll call Martha McCallum. And this is where he went. This should show you how partisan he is. This is not an umpire. This is not a fair process. This is not somebody I cannot believe that he was so trained up like a seal to just say, fair process, I want to be heard. And the more he said he wanted to be heard, the more I could envision him with somebody's hand over his mouth going, yeah, now try to be heard. So I really think that Thursday, with no witnesses and no investigation. Oh, and there, Charles Grassley is indicating that a strange woman who will not be, we don't know who it is. The people on the Judiciary Committee on the Democratic side, they don't know who it is. But they're going to bring in some strange woman to question Brett Kavanaugh. Lindsey Graham has already said he will be asking no questions. He's already said he made up his mind. What do you want me to do? He says, what do you want me to do? What am I supposed to?
What do you expect me to do? You can't bring it in a criminal court. You would never sue civilly. You couldn't even get a warrant. What am I supposed to do? Go ahead and ruin this guy's life based on an accusation.
You can bring it into criminal court. In fact, in Maryland, there is a woman who is weighing her options right now. There is a woman who hasn't filed charges, but has talked to investigators in Montgomery County. She would be woman number 4. Michael Avenatti's unidentified person would be number 3. Ramirez is number 2, and Ford is the first. Ramirez's name was leaked. So was Dr. Blasey Ford's name leaked. These other two, the other two, one, we don't know who she is, but we do know that investigators in Montgomery County have been contacted. She has spoken to them, but no charges have been filed. They have agreed that if it happened in Montgomery County, Maryland, and if she presses charges, they will investigate, which tells you what I've been telling you. There is no statute of limitations on sexual assault in Maryland. But this dog and pony show last night, oh my God. Did you hear that he's claiming that he is a virgin? He was a virgin?
But now you've got more allegations. So you've got this sort of attempt to kind of swarm a number of people who are putting at least enough doubt out there so that this process will be stymied, so that it will take longer, and so that they will get the investigation that they're looking for. Michael Avenatti says that he has significant evidence, and another accuser who claims that you and Mark Judge at multiple house parties in the Washington, D.C. area during the 1980s would participate in the targeting of women with alcohol and drugs to allow a train of men to subsequently gang rape them. There are multiple witnesses that will corroborate these facts, and each of them must be called to testify publicly. Did you ever participate in, or were you ever aware of any gang rape that happened at a party that you attended?
That's totally false and outrageous. Never done any such thing, known about any such thing. When I was in high school, and I went to an all-boys Catholic high school, a Jesuit high school, where I was focused on academics and athletics, going to church every Sunday at Little Flower, working on my service projects, and friendship with my fellow classmates, and friendship with girls from the local all-girls Catholic schools. And yes, there were parties, and the drinking age was 18, and yes, the seniors were legal and had beer there. And yes, people might have had too many beers on occasion, and people generally in high school, I think all of us have probably done things we look back on in high school and regret or cringe a bit, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an allegation of sexual assault. I've never sexually assaulted anyone. I did not have sexual intercourse or anything close to sexual intercourse in high school or for many years thereafter. And the girls from the schools I went to and I were friends.
So you're saying that through all these years that are in question, you were a virgin?
That's correct.
Well, that doesn't conflict with the accusation at all. If he was a virgin, he was just a very bad rapist, which is, pretty much what's been alleged here. I was so busy with my academics and my athletics and going to church every Sunday at Little Flower, working on my service projects and friendship? What is he saying? There simply was no time to be rapey? I just didn't have time to mount. I just didn't have time to put my hand over it. What is he talking about? His own roommate, okay, is saying he would stay out all night. He would come home. He was belligerent. He was a bad drunk. I don't even understand this. But, you know, under the leadership of the legendary Bill Shine and the legendary Donald Trump, Brett Kavanaugh is being coached by the best team of sexual assault deniers ever assembled on the planet. Ever assembled on the planet. Did you see the president this morning? It's so painful. He went to the UN General Assembly. He was laughed at. He's literally the laughingstock of the world, which is what he accused Barack Obama of being. Remember, we can't have a president who's the laughingstock of the world. They laughed at him today. And then after he addressed the UN General Assembly, where they laughed at him.
Today I stand before the United Nations General Assembly to share the extraordinary progress we've made. In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true.
They're laughing.
Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
The whole world. Less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. See, in the United States, that is an old joke. It's an old bad joke now. But the UN, he's at the United Nations saying this to world leaders who remember presidents who brought electricity to the Tennessee Valley, created Medicare and Social Security, created a 40-hour work week and minimum wage, and created the United Nations. And that's why they laughed at him, sitting with the president of Colombia, and he says this.
I saw Judge Kavanaugh.
Could you give us some thoughts, sir?
I think he's just a wonderful human being. I mean, I think it's horrible what the Democrats have done. It's a con game they're playing. They're really con artists. They're trying to convince. You know, they don't believe it themselves, okay? They know he's a high-quality person. They don't believe him. It's just resist and obstruct. They're playing a con game, and they play it very well. They play it actually much better than the Republicans. They're lousy politicians, and they have lousy policy. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They want to get rid of ICE. They want to get rid of law enforcement. They don't want to take care of our military. They want to raise your taxes. But they're good at one thing. They're good at one thing. That's obstruction and resisting and con. For the Democrats to be trying to make him into something, let's be nice about it, that he's not. I mean, charges come up from 36 years ago that are totally unsubstantiated. I mean, you, as watching this, as the president of a great country, Colombia, you must say, how is this possible? 36 years ago? Nobody ever knew about it, nobody ever heard about it, and now a new charge comes up, and she said, well, it might not be him, and there were gaps, and she said she was totally inebriated, and she was all messed up, and she doesn't know it was him, but it might have been him. Oh, gee, let's not make him a Supreme Court judge because of that. This is a con game being played by the Democrats also.
This is the world champion con man. This is a man who wouldn't rent to African Americans and was forced to, take out an ad in the newspaper saying that he would, and then continued not to rent to African Americans. This is a man who had a mob lawyer as his personal attorney, Roy Cohen. This is a man who's been accused in court of being directing Michael Cohen to commit 2 felonies. This is a man who paid off $25 million for running a fraudulent university that ripped people off of $36,000, $40,000 to go to Trump University, which was a fraud. This is a guy who pays off women who he has slept with denies that he has slept with them. And then we see the actual money being funneled through a law firm at the direction of himself. This is a man who is the subject of a investigation into the subversion of American democracy by giving, aid and comfort to Russian hackers. This is a man who would not believe the Central Park 5 weren't rapists, even after DNA evidence proved that they were wrongfully jailed. This is a man who says that the Democrats are lawless. Let me tell you something. Almost every Democrat on the Judiciary Committee is a prosecutor. Almost every one of them, spent their time in public service as a prosecutor. Oh, my God. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.